apply to anybody in this chamber. But if anybody is driving CA16ZSE or pensive looks all around, AK58LDU, you've got a couple of minutes to shift it before it gets shifted for you. If not, enjoy the rest of the council meeting.
Sorry, good afternoon again to you all. Can we have apologies for absence, please?
We've had apologies from Councillor Howarth, Councillor Guppy and Councillor Webb.
Any more? Oh, Dimitri?
Councillor A. Watts.
Thank you.
Councillor Phil Murphy and Lisa Dimmock. And Sheila Woodhouse.
I don't believe we have any public forum this morning, this afternoon. Not that I am aware of, anyway. We now come to announcements and petitions. I'd like to welcome you back because this is the first time after your short holiday. Whether you worked through the holiday or not, I don't know, but welcome you back, and I hope you're all refreshed and ready for work. We have a petition from Councillor Penny Jones.
Thank you, Chair. This petition is on behalf of all of Raglan residents, and it's for the safety measures on the A40 Raglan bypass. And alongside the online petitions, the amount of signatures come to 1,067. There is great concern at the dangers posed to pedestrians, cars, buses, lorries and cyclists on this heavily trafficked stretch of the A40, and we call for the following changes to the A40 by Raglan. The main area of concern is the pedestrian crossing to Raglan Castle. There are no proper signposts to make drivers aware of this crossing. There's also no speed there's a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit, but we would like this reduced. A new roundabout where the old Monmouth Road and Cressonham Road reach the A40, since the junction is dangerous and currently unfit for purpose. It is unsuitable for use by HGVs and serious accidents happen here. So I'd like to hand this over, please, Chair.
We also have a petition for Councillor Jo Watkins.
Thank you. I've received a petition from the residents of Church Road in Caldicot. It's actually only been a petition of those residents, but I have to say this is a matter that was of great concern to all the people within the ward and was the main aspect of concern that they had about what they needed to have done within Caldicot. The petition requests a safe crossing facility on Church Road, close the gate to the new pathway and maintain this access point for emergencies only. Provide a safe dropping off pick-up point for parent, utilising motor vehicles to bring their children to and from school, and any other measures the council considers appropriate to eliminate or significantly reduce the very high risk of serious injury or death from those exposed to the hazards. To give the council a little bit of an explanation as to why this is so important, Church Road is the main route for a large amount of the residents who live within Caldicot to get into Caldicot town centre and onwards to other roads. There is no easy other access route that they can do apart from going via Caerwent, which is not practical. Church Road also houses Castle Park Primary School. It has no car park, no drop-off zone whatsoever. What tends to happen is parents park on Church Road in order to drop off their children. Then other road users need to get to their work, and they therefore drive down the road. This then creates a log jam. People behave irresponsibly with their driving, I have to say, and they start to declare that because they have a right of way, they're going to drive anyway. This causes there to actually be two cars confronting each other and there's no space to go around them, except by mounting the pavements. I have been there myself and witnessed cars mounting the pavements whilst children are walking to school on those safe pavements. This is not safe. I am a mother. I teach my children, stay on the pavement where you're safe. Don't go in the road. What happens when our children think they are safe and yet cars are coming onto the pavements directly outside the school? Please, Council, I request this on behalf of the children of Caldicot. Something must be done to make this a safe space for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. We now come to declarations of interest. Does anybody want to declare any? Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like some clarification from our legal representative. We got Monmouthshire Housing coming in here, and I sit on one of the committees there, and I'm also a tenant. Do I have to declare an interest?
You're a council appointment on this, Councillor Evans. No, so
Appointment by Monmouthshire Housing.
right. Okay. So okay. In that case, then I think you will have to leave the meeting when that matter is being considered. Okay, I think that's the safest course of action there. If there are members who are appointed by the council onto Monmouthshire Housing Association, then you're in a slightly different position. You'll need to declare a personal interest, but that personal interest is only personal. It's not prejudicial. The code specifically allows for that, and you can stay in the meeting, take a full part in the debate, and vote. Okay? Thank you.
In that case, then, Madam Chair, I'll be declaring an interest and a prejudice.
Thank you. Councillor Brown-Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 10C, I think it is, but I know it's coming earlier in the meeting. The Velathon. I have a personal and prejudicial interest in this subject, and I will be leaving the room.
Thank you. Councillor Valsmere.
I'm a member of Monmouth Housing Association. I have no personal interest whatsoever other than an interest in the association. It's non-prejudicial. I cannot think it matters. So I will stay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm also a member of MHA currently, so I'll declare interest. And similarly, the Velathon, I shall need to leave the room.
Thank you. Is that everyone for now? Oh, sorry, Councillor Taylor.
Sorry, just in the statement of accounts, there's mention of the private finance initiative with Aneurin Bevan University Health Board. I'm a member of Aneurin Bevan, an independent member of Aneurin Bevan Health Board. I don't think it's prejudicial, but I just note it for probity.
Councillor Branstrong.
I'd like to declare an interest with the Velathon item as well.
Right. Is that everyone now? Thank you. We confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th. This is just for accuracy alone.
Move.
You move it. Oh.
Yes, just a matter of accuracy on page 10, when my intervention, it says, the way it's written is saying that Welsh Government only contributed 2 million in total. I meant 2 million for the leisure offer for the pool. In total, there's contributed 40 million. Could that just be made clearer, please?
It's been proposed and seconded. Sorry, proposed and seconded. With that alteration, all those in favour? Thank you. Action list from the last meeting. And we have it here. We have various matters of progress. Oh, yes, thank you. Councillor Breakborough.
Thanks, Chair. Just looking at the action list, the letter that was sent to Westminster highlighting some of the issues of the 50s women who are disproportionately negatively impacted by pension policy changes. First of all, thank you, Councillor Fox, for sending that letter. It was a good letter, very well crafted. Therefore, very disappointed on the reply. I don't know if anybody saw the reply that was circulated round. My colleague here said it was a very rubbish letter, and I think that is absolutely right. It was a very disrespectful letter, and I was just wondering the thoughts of Councillor Petruni, who put that motion forward, and also Councillor Fox, in terms of the next step forward, and perhaps make a suggestion that we send a letter asking for a more considered response, because it does come back as just a very lazy cut and paste reply. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Fox, are you happy to do it?
Yeah, thank you, Debbie. Obviously, there were good officers who helped construct that letter on the council's behalf. I'm happy to put my name to it, and happy for us to explore out where we haven't had sufficient answers to that, and if that requires us writing a further letter, Madam Chairman, happy to put my name to that.
Thank you. Councillor Eason.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I refer you to the motion I put to Council in June. The response which never came back in the previous meeting is now come back to me, in as much as the motion that I put forward regarding 106 monies. It's been confirmed that my assertion was correct. The money to Port Stewart did not come from 106 monies, it came from reserves. Councillor Murphy's not here to answer himself, but I'm rather surprised that our Finance Cabinet member wasn't really aware of that. It does beg the question that I felt at the time that there was better treatment in one area than another, because I was looking for some help in a certain part of Caldicot, but the assertion I made has been proved correct. That it did come from reserves, not 106 money.
Thank you.
Directly answer Councillor Blakeborough. Happy to push it. I expected the answer to be poor, and it turned out to be the case. Happy to support any moves the council makes on this.
Thank you. Sorry, we had notice of motion from Councillor Giles Howard.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have a hunch that members are likely to support the motion, since Bob Greenland hasn't approached me about an amendment. So just a few words of introduction then. Most people in the chamber will know the site concerned. Llanellan Bridge is midway along an almost continuous tarmac-adam footpath that runs all the way from Llanova into Abergavenny. However, it's the only footpath that I can think of that directs its users right into the carriageway and traffic of a busy trunk road, because there's no pavement. And worse than that, one that the humpback of the bridge prevents any forward visibility. As the Johnny Come Lately to the Residents campaign, and benefiting from the earlier involvement of Nick Ramsey and David Davis, I promised in my election materials to become involved. I was pleased to have a reply from the Minister that draft designs for a bridge were being drawn up on the back of a feasibility study carried out, but I'm also aware that the leap from drawing board to actuality is another matter. I therefore ask members to support the motion and the attempts of the Welsh Government to provide a swift resolution.
Thank you. Does anybody like to comment? Sorry, have you got a seconder? Oh, I think you've got seconders all over the room by the look of it. Bob Greenland. Right, sorry, Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Chair. I would have been happy to second it, but people have got there before me. It's a no-brainer. I'm sure we're all going to support it, and I'll be surprised if we don't all do that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Does anybody wish to make any more comments, or shall we put this to the vote? Councillor Smith.
Very brief comment, Chairman, that it's a pity that this proposal wasn't incorporated into the design of the estate on the other side, that it's going to link to Abergavenny with. So it's a long time coming, but it's coming.
Sorry, are we all in favour of supporting this motion? Thank you very much. We now come to item 8, reports of the Chief Officer, Resources. Item 8.1, I believe Councillor Peter Fox is going to speak to this.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I'm here doing this on behalf of Phil Murphy, who's currently in New York. But he did ring me, conscientious as he is, from Central Park yesterday afternoon to make sure I was comfortable with elements in it. And anyway, but I'm well supported by our officers today, so I'm sure members will get answers to their questions. And also pleased to welcome Terry Lewis from WAO, who will give a summary position perhaps of the WAO statement on our accounts following the introduction. So I won't be long, members. It's straight for many of you will have seen these, or if you haven't been in council before, we're very familiar with accounts. Regulation requires the council to consider and sign off the council's statement of accounts before publication deadline of 30th of September. And a report has been considered at your audit committee meeting on Tuesday, and I'm pleased to say that the audit committee endorsed the accounts for approval, and so I welcome that and take from that and I understand from colleagues that there was a fair challenge of the accounts and so a lot of in-depth inquiry, and hopefully, clearly members were satisfied. So under the current legislation, the accounts preparation process prior to audit has to be concluded each year by the 30th of June. Council approval for the accounts follows that process, and as I said, has to be completed by the 30th of September. And these accounts were prepared 3 weeks ahead of the deadline, and the council needs to take a further week out of that process within the next 4 years, as the preparation deadlines are moving to May the 31st in respect of those accounts we'll be presented with in 2021. Auditors have a similar challenge to take a month out of the process of their side of things. There are a couple of changes which are included in this year's guidance that seek for us to better standardise statement of accounts, but I'm sure Terry will reflect on some of the areas where we could have some further improvement. But on the whole, the accounts are a good set of accounts prepared properly and well, as the Auditor General's statement captures. Madam Chairman, I'm not going to try and ramble on through this. It's a huge set of accounts and a lot of information here. I'm sure members will have questions, they usually do, but the recommendation before us is that the final draft of Monmouthshire County Council Statement of Accounts for 2016-17 at Appendix 1 be accepted as a true and fair view of the Council Statement of Accounts. Madam Chairman, at that point, could I perhaps invite, with your permission, Terry Lewis from WAO to give a flavour of their position on our accounts?
Yes, please, if they would, that would be very kind.
Madam Chairman, before we do,
sorry,
I think the leaders moved that we accept them, move the recommendation. I prepared a second, because I was in audit on Tuesday. We went through audit. There were various questions and that, which was answered by both offices and the audit office. So I'll end there. I seconded the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lewis.
Okay, thanks for that. Good afternoon. I'll just give you a high-level summary of this document. It's something that we present at the same time that you consider the accounts, reports the findings of our audit. The headline message really is that we're issuing, or the proposal is that the Auditor General for Wales will give an unqualified opinion on these accounts, which means they're materially correct. There are no significant errors or omissions in these accounts. couple of things I'd just like to flag. We're extremely grateful really to the council finance team, Joy, Mark and everyone else that was involved in putting these accounts together. They were good quality, the working papers were good, we had good working relations and things progressed really well during the course of the audit. And also to echo the fact that they were prepared earlier, 3 weeks ahead of the deadline, which bodes well for the future in bringing deadlines forward. There will be a challenge for us in terms of auditing that, because that's all got to be brought forward. So when we come to audit the accounts, all the working papers, everything will have to be lined up to a good quality standard if we're going to meet those deadlines. But where we are at the moment, we're in a good place really to move forward and improve that process. We'll be having some discussions around that. So with this report does set out some sort of issues that arose during the course of the audit. On page 127 of your papers, it sort of sets out a number of uncorrected misstatements that were in the accounts. Now, those are things that we found during the course of the audit, which in an ideal world the council would correct before the accounts get signed off. But clearly they're not material things, they're significant things, but things that are not going to affect the opinion on the accounts. And your letter of representation sets out why you're not adjusting for those things. It's usually because it's additional work. Figures, you change one figure in the accounts, it affects a number of other things. So we're required to report those things to you in this document, and then you respond by saying, well, we're not adjusting for those things for these various reasons. Most of these issues are sort of normal things that we would pick up during the course of the audit, and mostly they're technical things around presentation or minor omissions in things like assets and things like that. Accounting for leases where there's a discount rate hasn't been applied or something. But as I say, these weren't material issues. I wasn't proposing to go through these in detail because they are quite technical. And I'm quite happy to take any questions if anybody wants to challenge us on any of those issues. In terms of the sum total of those uncorrected misstatements, they're mainly presentational. They don't affect the bottom line income and expenditure. It was 858,000 in total, but as I say, mainly compensating between one balance or another. Other significant issues on page 129, if we just move to there, there were a number of rounding errors in the accounts. Now, from our point of view, the set of accounts should sort of add up to the nearest 1,000. I think we've agreed a way forward in future where they were rounding formula will be built into the accounts so that those rounding errors would be omitted in future. But if you did take a calculator and went through every figure in the accounts, you would find one or two rounding errors in there that would just show up. There were some disclosures that didn't comply with the sort of new accounting code, but nothing significant again. We've agreed a way forward on those to pick those up in the future. We didn't identify any material weaknesses in any of your internal controls in terms of putting those accounts together, the arrangements that you have in place. And there's nothing else that we're required by auditing standards that we need to report to you or bring to your attention at this point in time. Just on independence and objectivity, we confirm that there are no relationships between the Wales Audit Office or the Council that we consider to bear any sort of bearing on objectivity or our independence. Everybody that we involved with the audit is totally independent of the authority, and we're very careful about that. Everybody has to make a sort of detailed disclosure around that. There are 3 appendices to this report. The first is your letter of representation, which you present to us, setting out your views on the accounts and the reasons for non-adjusted some of the things that we found. Appendix 2 is the audit certificate, which the Assistant Auditor General usually signs on behalf of the Auditor General for Wales, which is scheduled to do next Monday, so there'll be a relatively short elapsed time before that happens. And in Appendix 3 just sets out all the corrections that you did make to the accounts as a result of things that we found. So were there things that you didn't adjust for, but there were also quite a wide range of things that you did adjust for and reflected in the accounts, things that we found during the course of the audit. Again, they're mainly presentational. They don't affect anything significantly. They don't affect the bottom line reported position either. So that's the just a quick sort of summary of the position. Headline is unqualified statements, good quality, accounts working papers, accounts produced early, Auditor General for Wales given his audit opinion next Monday once we've received the signed accounts and signed letter of representation. So happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Are there any questions? Councillor Peter Fox.
No question, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to thank Terry for giving us that insight, and also thank WAO for the way they conducted their audit with us, and thank you for the comments. And can I also pay tribute once again to our accountancy staff, certainly Joy and Mark, and the other accountants across the organisation which helped to bring these together, and it's really pleasing to hear such positive report back from WAO, albeit there is always some further things to do, but there's clearly a way forward to address those, which is promising. So, Madam Chairman, I'll just reiterate the recommendations and so move.
It's been Councillor Eason, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. It's a question not of the Wales Audit Office, but of the accounts in particular. It is to do with education. Before I carry on, I'm a governor on 2 schools. I believe that as councillors we don't need to make a personal prejudice interest in this matter. Am I correct? Right, well,
depends what you're going to ask, Councillor Eason. But look, I think you're talking about the accounts. Are you? And if you're talking about specific schools,
no.
You're not.
In general.
Even if you were talking about a specific school and it was a school to which you were a governor, it's just a personal interest only. So
well, I'll declare a personal interest as a governor to a school.
There's no need if you're not talking about the specific school you're a governor.
But the question of the schools in general and the school balances. At the beginning of the financial year previous, there were 6 schools running a deficit budget. During the year, I think between 28 and 30 schools ran a deficit budget, leaving us at the end of the year with 13, I think, schools with a deficit budget. And the total schools funding, total school reserves at the time was about £285,000. It's likely on present trends that schools in general, overall for Monmouthshire, would run into a deficit situation altogether. I'd like some assurance of the appropriate officers that this matter is underhand and that we can see a way through of not being in a deficit position at the end of the next financial year. Thank you.
Do you want to speak now?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the question about our school's financial position. We took 2 reports, the month 2 budget monitoring report and a report to Cabinet and CYP Select in the last week, considering a breach of our fair funding regulations with regards to the school setting as a collective deficit. So we've worked through a number of those challenges with colleagues in the schools to make sure that they're aware of the importance of their financial management of the school balances. We're in a position whereby the position has improved significantly in the first 2 months. So we saw an improvement of £180,000 on the predicted collective deficit at the year end. I made it very clear when I met head teachers in this chamber just yesterday morning the importance of ongoing financial vigilance to make sure that we don't move beyond that budget position, certainly. The other thing which we were very clear with CYP Select was that the exemption is for 1 year only, and we'll look to undertake stronger controls in terms of school budgets if we see any deterioration in that position as we get closer towards the year end.
Okay, thank you.
Dimitri, sorry, Councillor Petruni.
2 technical questions, just for interest, really. On page 23, we took in more council tax than budgeted for, 600,000. Just wondering why, what accounts for that? Is it just we better at collecting, or more properties came on stream than we've realised? And on council tax benefit, we didn't pay out as much. I was just, again, asking why.
On the council tax collection rate, our surplus is generated by a combination of factors. So we set a council tax base in December prior to the year of account, and we have to estimate the number of new properties often we are prudent in that approach. So part of the reason why we've got a surplus on council tax is extra new properties, and part will be better collection rates or changes to people's circumstances. So people coming out of single person discount, etc., really. On the council tax reduction scheme, that is demand-led, so we have seen a decline since it was introduced year on year, really. Can't really comment much further on that. It is demand-led. We deal with all the applications we have, so it is a declining trend that could be seen as positive in terms of the economy of our area, meaning that less people need to call on that help.
Councillor David Dovey.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd just like to refer to the deficits, the school deficits. I've sat in this chamber over a considerable period of time where Chepstow School was picked out as being a fairly bad example of a school in deficit, and I have to say through no fault of the current head teacher or indeed her team. It's, I'd like to point out that Chepstow School is no longer in deficit. It is going to be in a very positive situation next for the coming school year, due to quite extraordinary efforts by the staff, the head teacher, and the leader, the chair of governors. And I'd also like to pay a gift of thanks, if you like, to Officer Mark Howcroft, who has played a really significant role in the guidance of the school to get out of this situation. So, as I say, I'd like to comment on the school's performance and also the support the school received from Mark. Thank you, Mark.
Councillor Grocott.
Thank you, Chair. Before I make my comment, I declare a personal interest as a governor of King Henry VIII School. Mention was made of the report on school finances to the CYP committee last week. And it was mentioned in that context that two of our comprehensive schools, King Henry VIII in Abergavenny and Monmouth, both had very considerable budget overshoots at the moment, and that one of the main causes of this was Welsh Government changes in post-16 funding. I wonder if we could be told whether all four of our comprehensive schools were subject to the same removal of funds, and if not, which schools were not subject to the same heavy withdrawal.
Will can answer that. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. All of the schools experienced a reduction in their post-16 funding. It's quite a complex approach that Welsh Government have set out in terms of how they allocate out the funding for post-16, and there are a combination of elements around it. The most significant part is about retention. There are a number of variables in terms of how that can be worked through. Do you do on average? Do you work between years 11 and 12? And completion, of course, in year 13. So it's actually quite a complex process to go through. Last year, we weren't expecting the scale of reduction that we had from the Welsh Government in terms of the overall post-16 grant. In the end, we went through a series of different scenarios of distribution methods with the schools. Every one we tried, there was a school which was more unhappy than they had been previously, and that's one of those challenging processes about how you do that. This year we've been working with the schools already to make sure that we've got a shared agreed distribution formula, and that will be in place for the next 3 years. So everybody experienced a reduction last year. The most significant reduction from memory was at Monmouth Comprehensive School, but I will get those exact figures for the councillor after the meeting.
Thank you. Is that all the questions for now? You propose to accept this now?
Yeah, I move the recommendation, Jim.
And Jim seconded. All in favour, please. Right. Now we move to item 9, and the first part of item 9 is Monmouthshire Housing Association change in rules and extension to the VAT shelter.
Chairman, we have the CEO of Monmouthshire Housing with us as well today. So if we just wait while he comes round.
Sorry, I'm used to standing. The sun chairs is on the ready.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. May I welcome the two gentlemen, and one we particularly know, and welcome back John Keegan, to Monmouthshire County Council. The report before us, Madam Chair, seeks to make some changes to Monmouthshire Housing Association's way that they operate with the council. The first change that you will see that comes forward is in relation to, when I can find it, in relation to the VAT set-off agreement which was made with them at the time of the stock transfer. Now, all the details are in the report, and I don't think that actually it is in any way controversial. I think we could all agree on those terms. Obviously, members will have the opportunity in a minute to give their views, but as far as I can see, that is fairly straightforward. So I'll move on to the second point, and they are making some suggestions for changes to the nominees. At the moment, we have 4 nominees that sit on their board, and it is proposed to reduce that to 2. I will have some comments to make on that, but I would just like to introduce John to explain the reasons behind the need for this report coming forward. John, would you, or you can do it from there, yeah.
Can everyone hear me? Okay, before anyone makes a joke, I am not standing up this time, but when I do stand, I'm not a lot taller anyway. This is Steve Higginson. He's the Deputy Chief Executive and the Finance Director of Monmouthshire Housing, and also my personal minder on finance matters. So if any queries in that matter, is no problem at all. We've been in existence just under 10 years now. We've benefited. There's no other word about it, from having council nominees in our board. Look around this room, a lot of them, some here still, some have just stood down at the last election. But we've changed considerably in the past 10 years as well. We've had quite a few actually turnover of members this year because people have been on our board for 9 years. So, and coupled with legislative changes which the Welsh Government are bringing in next year, and the fact that a lot of members are standing down at this point, and rather than having to do this next year, we brought it forward a year, spoke to Peter Fox, Councillor Fox, and Paul about this, gave a rationale. And the rationale essentially is that the Office for National Statistics have reclassified us as public bodies. This presents a problem for us and for the Welsh Government, because all of our debt goes onto the Welsh Government balance sheet, and that has a significant impact on their ability to borrow money, and likewise ours. So the Welsh Government are in quite a rush to rectify that matter before the view of the Office for National Statistics comes into being. So all of the changes that we're proposing here today actually will be legislated for next year. We're just doing it a year early. I want to emphasise that the relationship with us and the local authority, we have benefited significantly from it. But when you think of when we transferred 10 years ago, our turnover was £10 million. We weren't building any properties, and things have moved on. We're now heading into an environment where there are different financial pressures on us. We're going to have to take a lot more risk. We need to make sure that our board has a skill set to match those risks as well, because we need people who will ask the right questions. It's all very well knowing the answers, but asking the right questions is the key. We need to ensure we have that skill set. So that's one of the rationale really behind it. We want to maintain the relationship very much so with Monmouthshire County Council. We have a tremendous relationship. I think it's open and frank, that we can all tell each other what our feelings are. Punches aren't pulled, but as a result then business gets done a lot quicker, and that goes from the planning department, Shirley, at the back, to working with social services, working with Rob, trying to turn various things that we might do legally. So the relationship is positive. We want to maintain that relationship. One of the rules that we do have is that we will operate predominantly within Monmouthshire. We are not seeking to change that rule. Why would we? We're in one of the best environments to operate as a housing association in Wales, and we would invest a lot more even if we could. This year, for example, we're spending £16 million in new homes within the county. And a lot of that involves a lot of risk and skills that we require on a board, and therefore we need to change the makeup of the board to meet that. Along with that then is to make rule changes in Monmouthshire Housing. There's a corporate vote from the local authority which could be used to block any rule changes. That's going to be legislated away next year as well, because what the Office for National Statistics would view that as a public body having control over us, therefore that would enforce us to continue to be viewed as a public body. So that's going as well. So that's the rationale behind it. You can see the various rules that we need. Some have a domino effect, one on top of the other. We certainly want to continue to work predominantly within the county. The more opportunities to get, the more we'll invest, the more we'll do in the county. So give us more opportunities. I'm going to do a little pitch for that while I'm at it here as well. And if you could sell us land a little bit cheaper, we'll build a whole lot more as well. Okay.
Thank you for that, John. First of all, may I say we have had a fantastic working relationship with you, and I'm sure that we, and indeed our tenants, have not regretted that we took that decision to transfer the stock to you. And I want to see that continue into the future. So in looking at this, there are a couple of points that I would make. First of all, I can quite see why you would want to have the skill sets of people coming from this council that will help you to move forward. I absolutely accept that. I also would accept that for a board can't keep growing. You need to bring some extra people in, and there does need to be a limit to the amount you have, otherwise it becomes unworkable. So as a principle, I personally, and I would recommend to council, I personally would not object to you, to the representation going down from 4 to 2 people. Where I think I want to understand some clarity is on the nominees. And reading through the report, it would seem to me that there is a bit of ambiguity in terms that if the Monmouthshire County Council could not bring forward 2 nominees who would satisfy the skills that you're looking for, then you would take it upon yourselves to make those appointments, and therefore there would effectively not be a Monmouthshire-sponsored representative on the board. We would actually like to retain the right to bring forward people who have those skills. And I'm sure with consultation, we could find those right people. We have some very good members in this chamber who have a variety of skills, and I don't think there would be any problems. But we would like to retain the right to make those 2 board member appointments. So in that respect, I would just like to, in terms of the second recommendation, omit the piece that comes after the semicolon 4 to 2, and instead put in making the appointments, MCC will endeavour to meet the skill sets required by MHA. That's the first point.
Yeah, that's no problem.
The second point is that we obviously have a very good working relationship. We very much see the advantages to our county that our working relationship has brought, and we don't want to see that diminish at all. And I'm sure that while you and your current management are there, it will not. However, looking into the future, I think I would want to recommend to council that we have some formal agreement between us which seeks to ensure that MHA's focus remains within the county. And I'm sure that's something that you would also agree with. So I have put together a form of words as an additional recommendation, which I hope you will find acceptable. I know you haven't read it at the moment, but all it is rewording paragraph 3.9 into a more formal set of words. And it's this: MHA will enter into a formal agreement with MCC that their commitment to Monmouthshire will remain, and they will continue to operate primarily in the county. As they grow through subsidiaries, the proceeds will be recycled through their parent organisation into the county.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's a sensible form of wording. That's the way we operate at the moment. I suppose I was trying to emphasise that, Councillor Greenland, that the rule which says we operate predominantly within the county is not one we're seeking to change. To tell you the truth, listen, if you look around some of the surrounding counties, you wouldn't really be too eager to operate in them anyway, you know.
I couldn't possibly.
Sorry.
You are being live streamed.
To the east.
Yes. Yes. So, with those brought forward, Chair, I would just like to open the debate to Council.
Councillor Higginson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I remember when it became Monmouthshire Housing Association, going back to 2002, and I was a part of it. And I remember appointing certainly Steve, was always the same name as myself. We're not related in any way, shape or fashion.
Declare an interest there, Jim.
Yes. In relation to the numbers on the management board, it's four independents, 4 tenants and 4 county councillors currently. And the one question I want to I'd like to see this council retain its 4 members of that management committee, I have to say. The question I wanted to ask you is, as a consequence of you bringing it to us that you want to reduce our membership, the council's membership to 2, what is going to be the composition of that management committee from then on?
Yeah, we're seeking to appoint 2 additional independents to the board, so there'll still be 4 tenants. There'll be 6 independents and 2 council nominees. 2 council nominees can be, it's a nominee from the local authority, so the local authority doesn't necessarily have to be a member, for example. The local authority can nominate who they want. I suppose if you look back when we started, Councillor, it was quite straightforward. We were repairing and maintaining the properties. And we're in a different place now. We still spend a lot on that. It's about £7 million on the planned maintenance programme, but £16 million in new build. It's about site acquisition. We need to sell some of them to cross-subsidise the rented ones to keep down the rents, to make them affordable within the county. So there's a lot more risk involved, whether it be from legal, HR. We've far more staff than we used to have. So working, when we were in the local authority, there was 150 of us. Now there's 240 of us, with about another 50 to 60 contractors working with us, numbers of people working with about 300. So we're in a much more complicated place. We need much more specialist advice, and that's why we're looking to increase the number of independents, whilst lowering the number, but maintaining absolutely the same number of tenants on the board.
But the reduction from the council to increase the independence.
That's correct, yeah.
Councillor,
send as many specialist people as you can. We'll make good use of them, I can assure you.
Okay. Councillor Petruni.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and I appreciate Mr. Keegan saying that it's an open and frank relationship. And I have to say, unfortunately, my dealings with MHA since my last term haven't been great. And considering MHA own half my ward, I have grave concerns, and I hear everything you've said, and I hear Welsh Government legislation, so don't you worry, I'll be having a word with them as well, about accountability. About ability of a councillor, regardless of political allegiance or non-political allegiance, to effect change for their residents. And I'll give you 2 examples in my ward where after the election, the recent election, on Middleway, residents asked me, because a lot of residents still get confused between councils and housing association. And many times I say that it's not a council property, it's a housing association property. They still say, yeah, but the council. So there's still a lot of communication need to be made there, that there's distinct organisation. I couldn't get play equipment for kids running around. I got the email here, proof saying, it'd be too expensive to maintain a swing, a little slide. There was about 20 little kids running around in this little Middleway flats, and all they wanted was play equipment, and I couldn't get that. Nothing I could do at all, nothing. As soon as you said no, that's it. We've been excluded politically last term. Any Labour group member, considering most of a lot of our tenants will be MHA, for political reasons. I hate to say that, but it has been where there was Conservatives or Independents who dominated that, so there was no voice for us as a political party to represent our tenants in that manner. There have been no ball games put up in greens in my area, which I had a lot of tenants and residents complain to me about. I had to explain over and over again it wasn't council. I went to the MHA, I was told one resident had complained and that was it, no ball game sign went up and there was nothing I could do. So I'm sitting there fielding questions, saying there's nothing I can do, I'm so sorry. You own half my ward, I'm elected on half of these residents, and there's nothing I can do if you say no. Now we get a report saying, basically, if none of you councils meet up to scratch from our agenda, there'll be independents. What can I do? I can't even have a go with the Conservatives about representation, about a formal political process. What about accountability for us as councillors to hold you to account when you let down the residents we represent?
Yeah, I would suggest that we're in daily contact with members of this local authority, and actually, and one of the reasons for the full and frank relationship is that we lots of the other organisations, you can only contact one officer if you want to talk to that organisation. That officer filters calls. We're not like that. Every single member here can ring us, ring directly to the officer responsible, and that's the way we've had it, and that's the way we like to keep it. I mean, you were able to ring up the person you required. Yeah, they may have said no, but have said yes to plenty. And I know that part of the political dialogue is to pick them when the answer is no, but the answer has been yes far more often than it has been no. In your particular ward, outside of Osbison, we've spent more in that ward than any other ward in the county, the sheer amount of investment that we've done in the properties. So the quality of the homes, and the quality of the homes is our predominant interest. The quality of the homes in your ward is way better than it has ever been since they were built. So from solar panels on the roofs to external wall insulation, new kitchens, new bathrooms, new front doors. We've done a huge amount of work in the gardens. In actual fact, the work that's been done in the garden, we do up the garden 300 properties a year. Interestingly enough, in Monmouthshire, it's harder work doing the garden than ever was doing the houses. That's much more difficult work, but the facilities therefore are better. As regards to play areas, yeah, if we do a new development, for example, there's a requirement, we'll do it, but the council have got the skill set to run the play areas. And to tell you the truth, if you put a drone over any of our estates, there's far more slides and trampolines and what have you in the back gardens, and are used more often than any external play area would be. So there are play areas in the area. I think that the council have the skill sets to do it. We don't, but when it comes to doing the houses, that's where we've got the skill set, and that's what we'll do. And I can guarantee your houses have never been in better shape than they are now. I'll also guarantee you that you say, but if you want to hold us to account, we're more than willing to come to any meeting that you want. Anything that we do in your area, we do consultations. We're in touch with you quite a lot, actually, councillor. And although it might be held into account in an open meeting, anything you want, you responded to. And sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is no. No, it's not. No, it's not, or anything like it. I would say absolutely. I would take you up on that. If you want me to give you detail about what we've done in your ward, we've done an absolute huge amount. But we didn't do that out of charity. It's because it needed to be done. But because it needed to be done, it was done. The thing about the no ball game signs, I can assure you, as many people don't want them as do want. If you look at the demographics of our estates, there are actually far more older people than there are younger people. One of the things we're trying to change is to change the demographics. Of course, the demographics change, and everybody wants ball games to go ahead. Well, then they'll go ahead. But the reality is that frequently people don't want the ball games because people have got more stuff now. You know, they got more cars, the balls are hitting the cars, they get fed up, they complain to us regularly about ball games going on. It's kind of one of those ones where there's no right answer. You're damned if you do and if you're damned if you don't. Because we might have taken down the no ball game sign, and you might have been standing up here today saying that places as a muck with feral kids kicking balls all over the place, driving the residents mad. There is no right answer to some things, but we're accountable to you, we are, because every time we do anything, you know about it. Every time you want to talk to us, we talk to you. Nobody's ever said you can't talk to them. No, you always get to talk to the right person. I guarantee that. We pride ourselves in that part of our relationship. Every member here gets to talk to the right officer.
Councillor Easton. Oh, sorry,
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Regarding the representation on the board, I believe we should retain 4, but I would like to see the 4 to be nominated from within the county, not just happens to be in one part of the county, because half of my ward is MHA. But we don't seem to have a representative in the south of the county, as Dimitri alludes to. So, but I do have a slightly different picture of the progress of the MHA the last number of years. When Kelly Byrne came in post in 2010, and you was fed up with me saying about Oakley Way, Oakley Way, Oakley Way, and we have made progress in Oakley Way. We've refurbished half of it. We're knocking the other half down. Well, you have, not me. We have demolished Brookside, so we're going to improve that whole area. So I do have a different outlook and picture of what the relationship I've had with yourselves and MHA, and I hope it will continue long and as long as it's necessary. But I do believe we should have more representation on, similar representation, but more county-wide than it is at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. I am particularly interested in this whole question of representation, and I absolutely think that it's right that people with the right skill set are represented on any board that's managing matters such as this, which are of critical importance to people. So I do hope that the issue of having the right representation over political mores will be important. I think that my own experience of sitting on boards where there are political appointments and independent appointments are that often the political appointments are not made for the right reasons. And I think that is a shame because it reflects badly on the organisation they're appointed from. It is not helpful to the organisation they're appointed to, and it is most certainly not helpful to the people that we are trying to serve, who are in our case, the wider residents of Monmouthshire, and in this particular case, tenants. However, I am interested in Councillor Petruni's points around the relationship and holding to account, and I do wonder whether there isn't a case for being much clearer about what we expect from representatives on outside bodies and what outside bodies expect from representatives from this authority. That's bound to be an iterative process, but having the right skills and also the right mechanisms to hold to account, I think, not just locally, but on a more global basis, because there are clearly Monmouthshire Housing Association homes in many communities. And that shouldn't just be a localised issue, a localised matter, though I understand from, for example, Councillor Petruni's point of view, he seems quite frustrated with his dealings. But I think the key point is that times have changed, and I noted Councillor Greenland's slip of the tongue when he referred to our homes, because they aren't our homes. They are, they're everybody's homes in many senses, but we're no longer the provider of housing in the county. And I think that's interesting because it perhaps says something about the relationship, and there's also perhaps something about where that relationship's going. Thank you, members.
Councillor Roger Harris. Oh, sorry. I can come back.
No, just to quickly clarify, we do a lot of stuff. For example, we run the Common Housing Register on behalf of the local authority. So when we're building new homes, it's via Shirley and Mark and their team about whether we get grant for or not, what kind of homes, the numbers which are for social housing or not. So I suppose I always like to think when we call it ours that we refer to the whole county rather than the council, but we're in this together, aren't we? Okay.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm a speaker's I find, and I have an excellent relationship with the MHA officers that deal with my ward, and I interact with them and the residents, the three of us, if you like, three parties together, and on the whole we managed to resolve most of the problems that come up. But it's also important to remember that the residents need to distinguish between what they want and what they need, and quite often it's a want rather than a need, and wants can be expensive. The important other aspect that's been mentioned already is that I've been on this council for 13 years now, and never once has anyone from this side of the chamber ever been anywhere near the MHA board, and quite honestly, that is a disgrace. We have got skill sets over this side, and it's not the first time I've stood up and said this in full council. It needs to be recognised. It needs to also be recognised that most of us on this side of the council have got large amounts of MHA properties in our ward, and I think it will be a disgrace if we go down to 2, that at least one of us on this side of the chamber aren't on that board. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Louise Brown.
Yes, thank you, Chair. One of the, is it all right if I sit down, Chair? Because I was looking at the report, which I can't see standing. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I was looking at page 148. Sorry, I was looking at page 148 of the report on Appendix 2, which gives the reasons on the changes for these proposals from 4 councillor representatives to 2. And obviously I've just found out from the representative for Monmouthshire Housing Association that the current split is 4 tenants, 4 independents and 4 council representatives. Now the proposal is to have 4 tenants, 6 independents and 2 council representatives. Now, looking at the reasons in there, it talks about making sure that in the bullet points on that page, remove any controlling vote or other rights of consent with local authority appointees. Now, by my calculations, even at the moment, they don't have a controlling vote because it's split a third, a third, a third. So a third tenants, a third independents, and a third councillors. So I don't really see that these proposals apply. It also says they've published a consultation document. Now, I don't know whether that consultation document is still ongoing or if it's closed or they're reviewing the results. So it may be that a question of the fact that we haven't actually reached the stage of what's actually being proposed. If it's guidance, it isn't necessarily something that has to be followed. It is just guidance. Unless it's down in legislation as a statutory demand, then presumably it doesn't have to be followed. The other reason why I'm also against the idea of the number of representatives for the council being reduced is due to the fact that it's important on a democratic basis that council members are involved in it. And the other underlying assumption that I don't like behind this is that councillors don't have skill sets. So it's assumed, in a sense, by the direction of flow here that you've got 4 tenants representatives who do have these skill sets, you've got 4 independents who do have skill sets, and you've got 4 councillors who have no skill sets whatsoever. And I find that that's not necessarily the case. So for many reasons, I think that I would prefer the status quo to be kept from that point of view, because I think it's viewing council members in a certain way, not realising that the life experiences or the skills that they have may well contribute just as much as an independent or a tenant representative. Thank you.
I need to respond to that actually, because it's a technical legal point.
And then Councillor Fox after.
Yeah, at the moment in our rules, if you want to change a rule, you have to have more than 66% approval from the members, and the council controls 1/3, so we can never change a rule without the council approving to it. So it's not, although they have 4 and 4 and 4, the council have a corporate vote, which is just 1 vote, and they can stop any rule changes. So it can restrict. So one of the reasons that you need to go, and one of the reasons, as referring back to the ONS classification, is that the fact that they can stop a rule change means then you're viewed as a public body. And that then has a significant impact on Welsh Assembly government balance sheet and ours as well, and our ability to lend. That's why you need to go below 66%, so as that we can do rule changes without any individual group of people or constituency, so to speak, being able to block a rule change. So that's the technical part of it. absolutely you would not say the councillors don't have the skill set. We've had many councillors with many skills in our board, and I think you're taking a wrong inference there. The technical reason is you need to come down below the 1/3. What the Welsh Government are proposing is that members can't compose more than 24% of the board, and 24% and under in our board is 2 members. So there's no reflection at all in the members. In actual fact, I would like to think that any of the members who have been on our board has learnt as much as we've learned from them as we've gone on. And I've got to say, I've never once approached the council here to say anything at any stage about any member who's been on our board, because we've had a fantastic relationship with them, and actually, sorry Roger, but one of them was from this side. Jim Higgins was on our board for a long time, a true gentleman, and somebody as an ex-cabinet member for housing actually added a lot to our board. So please, Councillor Brown, don't take anything about the skill set of members. Let's have 2 great members who will add value to our board.
Councillor Fox.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome, John. Good to see you here, and I thank you for your candidness as well and openness. I remember the days, like Jim, I've been around here a while, and I remember when our houses were in hell of a state, and we needed to do something about it. We were never going to reach that quality housing standard, you know, and let's not forget, tenants wanted to create this entity, and what a good job they did, and what a good job the MHA has been in existence and done such marvellous things. In my own community, I've seen great improvements in quality housing, the quality of the housing. When I was out on the election trail, going around many areas of this county, as most of us did, the quality of the housing was something we would talk about as we walked around. The improvements, you know, it was great to see what has happened and the quality of homes that people had to live in. So I have no beef at all with MHA as an organisation and what you've done, and I do value the solid relationship we have from a housing front, but also that partnership approach we apply in many other forums as well, and that's important to me, and it's important to the council, and I think I agree wholeheartedly with everything Bob said. We want to secure that going forward. We know that that's in place now with you, John, and your team, but in 20 years' time, you know, might that be lost if we don't sort of secure it and anchor it now. We wish the MHA well in its next steps as it moves forward into a more of a commercial role. We see that that's a natural progression. I can see that's a natural progression, and I welcome that the expectation that income received can be recirculated and reinvested back in the county. That commitment to the county seems strong to me there. I hear the comments from the left over board membership, but then I hear contradictions to that, where I've heard good members like Jim on the board, Dave Evans on the board in a different guise, you know. But I think whoever's on the board's done a good job, because we've got some good houses and we're going to have some more good houses. You know, so there is strong representation. I'm sure that the tenant representation is ferocious in defending its needs as well, you know, and so I haven't got issues necessarily over the board, even though I hear the members and what they say about representation. I don't really mind who sits on the board, as long as they do a good job and act in a way which is beneficial to the future of our residents. And if that's an elected member or somebody else we propose to put in, you know, that's fine by me, but you know, I do agree with Bob with his amendment to, you know, to leave that to us to decide who comes forward there. As for the first set of recommendation, no-brainer on the VA, of course. Why wouldn't we want to do that? And I appreciate actually that we're having this discussion early. I know it's important before your AGM. But, you know, the reality is, as much as we might hanker for continued membership, the legislation is not going to allow us to pursue that. So we need to embrace the change and find how we can work together to make it work in the best interest. And we've got a commitment from you. We want to seal that commitment and move forward. So, members, I don't think there is anything to be frightened of in here with Bob's amendments. And I think it just builds a strong relationship. Let's make sure we provide the right skill set to help the organisation move forward in the future. So, Madam Chairman, I'm content to support support the recommendations as amended by Councillor Greenland.
Councillor Jez Baker and then Councillor Petruni wanted to come back.
Thank you, Chair. My question is more to do with intention in the future, because we seem to have a good working relationship now, but there are many housing associations in other parts of the UK that are shedding their RSL status so that they can become more commercial organisations and build a private portfolio. How can we be assured with this lessening of representation that, although I have no doubt of your intent to remain an affordable housing focus, in 20 years' time it could be different, the market will be different. We've heard a lot about investment, reinvestment into the county of what you generate, but what has your reclassification from an RSL done to your strategy for taking homes to the open market? Are you intending to take more homes to the open market rather than affordable? So.
We're not being reclassified away from being an RSL. We will remain one. We're an industrial and provident society with charitable status. So that remains the same. The key about affordable rent, actually, particularly in England, is driven by government policy, which isn't reflected here in Wales because housing is a devolved function. So the rents in Wales are a lot more affordable than they are in England, even within the space of a mile. If you're in Monmouth and you go across the river, the rents very quickly become much higher and more unaffordable than ours. So there's a more benign atmosphere in Wales as regards what affordable means. But we do need to, for example, there's much higher demand than there is grant available. So we often need to sell properties on the site, use the profits then against the finance we've drawn down on the ones who for rent to make sure that those rents remain below a thing called the local housing allowance. If the rents go above the local housing allowance and you're on benefits, you've got to pay the difference. This is an emerging problem. And because it's an emerging problem, we'll probably have to build even more speculatively for sale to cross-subsidise even more to keep the rents down. The affordability is a problem even within Monmouthshire. We're acutely aware of that. We didn't take the full rent increase last year to make sure that we kept the rents affordable. We got a bigger issue even this year because the proposed rent increase is more than we want to pass on to the tenants. So the only way you do that then is to do some speculative build, take profit from those and then gift aid that profit back to Monmouthshire Housing so that we can keep the rents affordable. A few years ago, every scheme that we worked on worked out over 30 years. Lots of the schemes now they're going to have to work out over 40 years, and within a few years we need 50 years for them to stack up. And the reason it takes so long is because we're keeping the rents low, so it takes you a lot longer to pay back the money. So the cross subsidy of profit with grant with rent is an intricate relationship, but one that we've got to really keep a very close eye on. But yeah, we know what our social purpose is. We intend to stick to it. But profit ain't the dirty word. If profit keeps your rent down, we'll have some of that. Thanks very much.
Councillor Petruni, just quickly,
Yeah, just a
and
quick-
Councillor Brown afterwards, but normally I wouldn't fast either of you back. I did interrupt Dimitri, but you can come in afterwards. Thank
Just
you.
a quick clarification before I ask my question. Is Bob's amendments mean we're speaking to the amendments?
I was going to take quite a relaxed approach to that. I think when introduced, Councillor Greenwood was suggesting that we have a third recommendation, which my interpretation is effectively a memorandum of understanding for the long term. Yeah. We'll work out some words before we come to vote. I also think when you come to vote on this report, you may well want to vote on 3 recommendations separately rather than as one, because what I'm hearing is there's quite a lot of agreement, certainly on. I've heard no dissent to the VAT proposal. There may be a difference of opinion in terms of recommendation 2. There may be on recommendation 3. So I'd be suggesting to the chair that we take 3 votes. But I'm treating this as a more relaxed conversation, and I think the chair has been content to run it in that way.
Can I just, on that question then? Because obviously I've got major concerns, and I don't want to go for the specific points. But would it be against the principle to add a 3rd bullet point requiring a senior manager of MHA to annually attend this council to take questions from all members? Would that be against?
Yeah, if you want to see me, I'd be more than delighted to come. Although some other people here mightn't thank you for it, but yeah, I'll turn up every year, no problem.
So, but that's not against the laws being...
No, not at all. And actually, we go to committee all the time. Various committees and different things. Turning up here is certainly is a pleasure rather than a chore. So no problem.
Okay, great. So can I propose an amendment then? There's a third bullet point that under the 2.1 that a senior manager of MHA, and I won't put any specific names, is required to attend the council on an annual basis to field questions from all local members. I don't know if
Put in the compact. Yeah, no, we wouldn't want to put that into a rule because it's not suitable for a rule, but definitely in a compact with the local authority, that's absolutely appropriate. Yeah. I'll be demanding that you let me in then.
If it's helpful, and again, on behalf of the chair, I'll take the feeling of the room, but if the idea is that we put together a third recommendation, which is effectively a memorandum of understanding, and it incorporates that expectation, fine.
Councillor Brown, if you can quickly...
Yes, just a very quick question. I mean, looking at the maths of it, I think it says a maximum of 24% of the total number of board members at a time. I calculate that 3 members would be 25% and 2 members would be 16.66%. So surely 3 members is, I mean, isn't there not a 1% flexibility in relation to going from, instead of 4 to 2, from 4 to 3? And, basically the other question I've got is really in relation to independent members, because obviously this is in relation to local authority appointees. Presumably councillors wouldn't be excluded from applying for an independent member place should they wish to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to say anything else?
Well, 24 is 24. 25 is not 24. That's why it's 2, not 3. So I think on that point we'll have to concede to the Welsh Government. As regards to councillor, there's specific rules, isn't there, about councillors who aren't a council nominee being... can I get back to you on that? Because as a legal point, we have rules around the fact that a councillor can't be... they can be a shareholder member. Councillor Smith is a shareholding member, but not a board member, for example. So you can come along and vote on AGMs and vote on rules as a member of the public, but you couldn't come along. You couldn't be the councillor. The word councillor can't be in there anywhere, if you see what I mean. You're a member of the public who's a shareholder, as opposed to voting to do anything to do with a corporate membership, which would be for the council. So it only costs £1. Councillor Smith thinks it's very good value for money.
Thank you. Right, shall we come back to the beginning again?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's gratifying to understand that Irish maths is the same as Welsh, and 25 is not 24. So that's thank you for clearing that. First of all, the purpose of this report is not to decide on any political representation or exactly who is going to go forward. We're not dealing with that here. We are simply dealing with the report that comes before us. And I would hope that in the future the representation is much more clearly understood because of our requirement to find the right skill sets. And that is not dependent upon political allegiance of anybody. And therefore I believe that the right thing to do is to seek the people with the skills that you are looking for. And I perfectly understand, even if it wasn't a Welsh Government requirement to go to 24%, I would still suggest that the right thing to do is to reduce the MCC representation. I believe that 12 on your board is maximum that you should really have. I believe that you do need those additional skill sets, which maybe cannot be found within the council. You are in a very specialised business, and therefore I think the addition of 2 independence members is quite right for you. It's now established that we can't, by law, have more than 2 members anyway, and so that I don't think is an argument. I just want to say actually that as a local member, I have always found that when I need to ring MHA about the elderly people's complex in Devorden, for instance, I've been able to get through to the right person, and I've always found that action follows pretty soon afterwards. I've certainly got no complaints from that. I think really we just simply need to take it forward in the way that the Chief Executive has suggested, in terms of 3 different recommendations. So we have the first recommendation, and if you would like, Madam Chair, I will bring forward the first one, and perhaps we can vote on that one. And the first recommendation is enter into a deed of variation to extend the VAT set-off agreement.
Who are your seconder for that? Yeah, right. All in favour?
That's carried, Chairman.
Thank you.
The second recommendation would read, MHA making rule changes to remove the current 4 nominees arrangement, reducing council nominees from 4 to 2. In making the appointments, MCC should endeavour to meet the skill sets required by MHA. So that would be the second recommendation.
All in favour?
And that's carried as well, Chairman.
The third one...
Nobody's indicating a desire to abstain, so we'll proceed. So,
sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Councillor Green.
The third one, which would be MHA will enter into a, what do you want to call it, memorandum of understanding? Yeah. Memorandum of understanding with MCC that their commitment to Monmouthshire will remain, and they will continue to operate primarily in the county. As they grow through subsidiaries, the proceeds will be recycled through their parent organisation into the county. And annually, we would welcome a report from one of the senior managers of MHA to come to council to report on their annual statement.
All in favour?
And that's carried as well,
Yep.
Chairman.
Thank
Yeah, we have.
We're now going to bring forward item 10C or 10.3, depending how you've got it on your thing, of the Velathon. Those who need to leave, perhaps they'd like to go and have a rest for a minute.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Velathon has been running now, I think, for 3 years. I think it is fair to say that the first year was an absolute disaster. It was run by an organisation that was, frankly, incapable of organising the event and took little, if any, notice of the requirements of Monmouthshire County Council in the running of it. Since then, the management has changed, and the responsibility for the event is now for an organisation run for Wales that is responsible for a number of other mass participation in events in Wales. And I think it is also undeniable that as we've progressed, we have seen improvements in the way that the event is organised. They have responded on each occasion to MCC's wishes to see improvements. For instance, last year, the pro race changed insofar that that was dealt with by a rolling road closure at our request. We also had concerns about the amount of litter that was spread around the county by the participants, and there were also cases of people urinating in the wrong places, if you put it like that. All of these have been addressed by Velathon as we've moved forward, and we now are in the point at which they are asking us for our agreement to move forward with the running of the event for next year. All the other 4 local authorities involved have already given their approval, and it remains for us now to decide today whether or not we wish to participate as well. There are some changes being brought in by the company for 2018. The first is that the pro race will no longer take place. And one of the big problems that we've had in Monmouthshire is that the tumble, as they now call it, was used by the pro race twice. In other words, they'd go up, round it, back down, and up again. That meant that the closure of the tumble was necessary, and the roads around Gavilan was necessary until the race had gone through for the second time, which was often in the middle of the afternoon. Now, with that race having been abandoned, we will find that the improvements will bring forward the reopening of the road in that area by about 2 hours. So that, I think, will be a huge benefit. The other area where we are looking is in Usk. Now, in this last year, we have had the bikes visible, the brightly painted bikes visible, and they have not just been an attraction for the Velathon itself, but they have proved to be a huge attraction for visitors to Usk throughout the period of the year. And I have to thank our communications manager, Abigail Barton. It was her idea, and she has brought that in, and it has been a brilliant success. It has brought a lot to the town, with people coming from quite far away to see the bikes. They were originally intended to be 40 or to 60, and I think the final count was well over 100. Absolutely brilliant initiative there. With that, the Velathon are looking at other ways that they can take an enthusiastic audience within the Usk area. And so what we are talking to them about at the moment is a shorter race beginning in Usk and ending in Cardiff. That will open, if it becomes a regular spot on the Velathon day, that will open huge opportunities for our traders here in Monmouthshire, both in pubs and shops, and indeed in accommodation providers as well. The negotiations on that aren't finished, but it is certainly something that officers are very keen to make sure is in the final package for the 2018. So we are moving forward. It's noticeable how much reduction we saw in complaints coming in to the council as a result of last year's event. In fact, in formal complaints, there was just one last year, and numerous people came to us and complimented both Usk and the county on the hosting of this event. So I, Chair, am absolutely convinced that we should move forward with the event for this year, but we should continue to negotiate with Velathon so that we can maximise the advantage for Monmouthshire and we can also minimise the disadvantages for the people who inevitably, there will always be some people who are disadvantaged when you are closing roads. But we should move forward and see if we can increase the success of the event, which is scheduled, I think, for July the 8th next year. So I would recommend, just the one recommendation, I would ask Council's support that we give our support to the continuation of Velathon next year.
Thank you, Councillor Greenland. Does anybody second that? Thank you. Councillor Higginson.
Yes, just a quick comment, Madam Chairman, if I may. I mean, I went to Cardiff last year to see start of one part of the event, and I stayed there for 6 hours to see the final run-in. And the number of people around Cardiff and between here and Cardiff, you could never really realise the popularity of it. So yeah, and I agree with Councillor Greenman, as I did last year and the year before. We need to support this. It's important for Monmouthshire as well as the other counties of South Wales, and I fully support this proposal.
Councillor Howard and then Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a little bit of difficulty supporting the report, not in terms of the principle of the race, but members who were present in the chamber in previous years will recall the comments made by my predecessor, Martin Hickman, and the feedback he'd received. I take into account what Bob has said about how the events have been improved and the running of them has been vastly better. But I think at this stage, without knowing what those road closures are going to be and the timing, I wouldn't be able to support the report. If we could do it such that there was a further report to Council with those details within it, that would be great. Regarding the complaints, I suspect that many of those weren't formally made because people accepted that it might be inevitable that the event was going to happen. And certainly I noted, and I think I referred to it last year, that the Bridge and Land Foist didn't do any Sunday lunch trade at all. So I suspect most of the food ended up in the bin. But that wasn't the subject of a formal complaint. So that's one thing. The other issue for me is what appeared in the Abergavenny Chronicle. I understand that paper, from reading the front page story and the editorial, has taken umbrage. And I'm not surprised, really, because I note the claim in the report that the issue that they reported about access for a carer was unsubstantiated when it clearly did happen. And I wonder then, noting that the editor has written to the Chief Executive, would the Chief Exec feel it appropriate to offer the Chronicle an apology? I'm also uncomfortable then about the reference in the report to managing the media and preventing letters. I think if this means that they should have, the issue should have been dealt with before the event, such that those letters wouldn't have had to have been written, that's one thing. But in terms of the emphasis on managing the media such that it would be convenient for us if they did nothing but print out our press releases, that's another. I'm not happy with that. There's as much of the scrutiny of us as anybody else out there. I think that's my comments, Chair.
Councillor Kevin Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome the fact that this professional race isn't going ahead, so we've only sort of got up until lunchtime with the road closed. I do welcome that because people are trapped in their houses for the entire day in my ward, well, a good chunk of the ward anyway. Well, I think what Run for Wales, or whatever it is they call it, need to get a handle on, certainly last year, the issue of toilets wasn't addressed, because about halfway up Glenavon Road, there's a sign there saying British Waterways for the canal. I think it should have been turned into British Waterworks for the day, because people were openly seen, urinating against the wall and things like that, and that's not acceptable. So I think they need to get a better handle on that, and also the litter issue, from what people in here call the tumble, which basically isn't the tumble, so where it comes from I don't know, but the tumble is further down inside. But the litter up there was bad, and there was a horrendous amount of black cable ties. I mean, I don't know what they used those for, whether it was to tie their trousers up or, hold their feet on the pedals or whatever, but there was hundreds of them. And I went through a little exercise up there picking them up because they were on the road, they were on the grass, they were on the side of the road, and around the Keeper's Pond, which is like frequented by 10,000 sheep for most of the year. Our animal didn't choke on them, I don't know, because they were just left there. They'd obviously been cut off something, just dumped, and they were there for days. So Run for Wales didn't clear up very well after them, and I think they need to make a more conscious effort to actually go behind and pick the rubbish up and not leave it for, you know, our guys in the operations department who've barely got enough time to do their own job without having to go up and pick up their rubbish. So I think they really need to address those issues as well. And that's basically what I want to say. In principle, I don't disagree with the event, you know. It looks like it has no tangible benefit for Monmouthshire. According to the paper today, there's nothing that we can actually say, yeah, we benefited from, you know, but that's fine. Perhaps we don't have to benefit from everything. It's a cost of 20,000, I think it was, a year, every time, officer time, people's time putting these signs out and things. So I think Run for Wales need to address those sort of housekeeping issues, if you like, rather than just ignore them and then leave it for somebody else to clear up afterwards.
Anyone else, or should we go to... Oh, Councillor Val-Smith.
Yes, please, Chairman. You said there was only one formal complaint. Well, complaints have to be, if a complainant rings up, you have to make it in a proper form. You don't, it's not good enough saying, I'm complaining or whatever. We have a process, and only in that way do your complaints get properly logged. The big issue is the road closures and the duration of them. We still don't know what those are going to be. A lot of sympathy with what Councillor Giles has said, and each year, this will be is it the third year we're coming to now? Each year I've looked for some financial figures, the actual cost. Reference in the, unless I've missed, reference in here is there is some officer time involved, whatever. I'd like a costing, please. This is exactly the investment that Monmouthshire County Council puts into this event. An honest figure, not just a bit of officer time, that's it. The clearing then of the rubbish and such like afterwards, what that actually costs us, because it's officer time again, ratepayers' time. It's a good event if it runs briskly, it runs well, it leaves the countryside looking good, and it would be even better if we could see a tangible financial benefit. But I have yet to see a financial figure after any of these events. So I look forward to knowing how long the closures will be this time, because it does impact, any closure impacts on local businesses, and they're trying hard to make money. So I look forward to a financial report, perhaps, Chairman.
Councillor Pavia and then Councillor Feakins.
Thank you, Chair. I think we should be more enthusiastic about encouraging the Velathon. I think it demonstrates a sport, and I think if it can convert a few young people into a new line of sport, then I think we should do everything we can to encourage it. There will be some uphill, or there will be some hindrances along that path. We're learning year on year what those hindrances are, and we're ironing those out. So I just think that we should be more encouraging about it. And I don't think it necessarily comes down to a financial benefit for us or a financial negative. I think that we can demonstrate to the youth of this county how we engage in activities that don't cost a lot of money, then I think we're doing our job well.
Councillor Green, and would you like to propose?
Yeah, can I just take up that last point first, because the real benefit in hosting this Velathon is not in terms of finance, it is in terms of health. If we can demonstrate to young people and get them enthused about cycling and physical activity, we will be beginning to combat the real problem of our age, overweight, obesity in children in particular. And I think for that reason alone, if we can make a difference to the lives of young children through showing them and enthusing them about these sort of events, then I think that it's worthwhile even on that basis alone. I would hope that I will bring before Council a further recommendation later on this year, where we can include, as a Monmouthshire County Council event, a local small cycle event around the town of Usk, maybe even joining into the route that comes up through the town, so that youngsters can begin to participate on a short route and will get the feeling of the thrill of coming into Usk to claps and cheers and a crowd applauding them. That will be a tremendous advantage if we can bring that off, but we're not in that position at the moment. In terms of advantages, yes, I would have liked to have seen some financial return, and officers are pressing Velathon on that, as they will indeed be pressing it on the points that members have made. Yes, we will look to improve on litter and all the other issues that Kevin Williams has mentioned. We are not simply saying, yes, here you are, you've got the right to go on now. Officers will continue to engage to make sure that next year's event is even better than this year's. And I would hope that members will support the recommendation.
Yeah, I'm afraid the couple came with your hands a bit late. I'd asked Councillor Green to sum up and nobody come in then, so unless it's life and death. So, right. Well, you were seconded, weren't you, and Matt, Councillor Feakin seconded. All those in favour?
Is there anybody against that recommendation?
Now, as we've got a few more things to get through, and it is 3:45, I think it'd be a good idea for us to have 10 minutes break. Now you can have a drink and do the usual, and we'll come back. We'll come back again at 4 o'clock.